There is a crisis in every arena of culture right now. There has been for years. Every mountain of culture, in politics, in education, in finance, in the family, in religion, there is this crisis which is coming to a head, and I'm sure that it's actually a crisis of leadership. It's a crisis of leadership because everything stands or falls on leadership. Every project, every idea, every team stands or falls, rises or falls on the quality of the leadership expressed. And we set ourselves up for failure in leadership. Let me explain how. For over 1,000 years in Europe, there was a governmental system that we call feudalism. There was a feudal lord and there were peasants. The peasants were owned by the feudal lord and the feudal lord was supposed to look after the peasants. When all of that collapsed, when all of that gave way and we created the governmental systems that we have today, there was an implicit deal done in Europe. And the implicit deal was this: no one will be a feudal lord anymore. We know what they do. We will all be peasants. And so we began to say to our kids, don't get ahead of yourself. Don't get above your station. Stay in your lane. And we created this crisis of leadership that I describe as poverty leadership. It developed into what is known as a tall poppy syndrome. When one poppy rises above the rest, we want to cut it down. We implicitly don't like leadership very much. Of course, it led then to a second crisis of leadership, which I think we're seeing in our evolving cultures today in the Western world. When feudalism was thrown out of the American system at the very early days of the American nation, they said no taxation without representation, and the implicit deal that was done was the opposite deal. We don't like being peasants. We all want to be kings. Everyone can be a king. There'll be no peasants anymore. And whilst it sounds great, it's led to what I describe as a leadership of prosperity. It's an equal and opposite problem. It leads to a cult of celebrity. Instead of the hiddenness and the hesitation and the manipulation of poverty leadership, we create this power-hungry, stage-centric cult of celebrity leadership. We have a crisis of leadership. And we're going to need a new kind of leadership that will lead us through this moment that we're in. We're going to need a leadership that is clear and concise and compassionate and kind. A leadership that's collaborative, a leadership that does not mind standing up and taking its place on the stage, but loves even more propelling other people and lifting them so they stand on the platform. A leadership that helps people run with the dreams that are in their hearts. A leadership of people, for people. I'm going to show you the kind of leadership that we need. I'm going to show you a leadership of responsibility, a leadership of humility, a leadership of creativity, and a leadership of service. And trust me, if you learn to embrace these characteristics, you will lead well, you will lead long, and you will lead strong in this world.